Hi, Ken.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for coming on to the Everyday Mystic.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm just really excited about this interviews with you. We've been talking about it for a while, so it's good that we
Yeah,
finally were able to do it.
yeah, exactly. And I love that we've come back together in time and space with each other because we met many years ago. I think we spoke at the same event and
Mhm.
really all about business. And in the business world, and I know you're a business strategist, and that was your role there. And I was there, in a marketing, biz dev capacity, and that's one of the hats, one of the many hats that we both wear and
Yeah,
share. But today
I,
we're going to
I
talk
remember
about,
it. I
yeah.
remember it. I remember it. And Joe Nunziata, yourself, R.V. Robinson, myself, we all spoke at that event, and it was a great event.
And I think John Assaraf spoke also.
John might
Was
have been there too. Yeah.
was
hmm
there? Yeah, it was a fantastic event in San Diego, I believe, or
hmm
around San Diego. And again, even those events or that event at least felt there was a vein of spirituality or at least mindfulness or personal development layered within there, even though we were talking about business. And that's such a reflection of you, right? You are both a business strategist, but also you've done so much inner work. And that's really what I want to focus on today is your inner journey and where that all started, where that's taken you, and where you're at with things today. So let's start with, where that all began, your,
Sure.
just the understanding of yourself
Yeah.
as something more than just this, flesh and bones.
Yeah, for me, it's about business and consciousness, and that started in 1992. It was March of 1992. It was right before St. Patrick's Day, and I was in therapy with a really amazing therapist. I've been in therapy for about a year, and I walked into the office this day, and I sat down with the doctor. He's in his big chair, and he has his steel blue eyes, and as I remember it, this beautiful silver hair, and he kind of looked like a Carl Jung figure. And so he says, "Well, what do you want to talk about today, Ken?" I said, "Well, Doc, I'm hearing these voices." And he says, "Well, what's the voices saying?" And he said, "Well, the voice says that I have to feel the pain to make the change." Now, remind you, I'm in therapy. I'm going through a lot of challenges at the time. The relationship isn't working. I'm spending every dime I have. I'm estranged from my children. I've got friends, but I would call them, friends from the dark side.
Mm.
So it's not a good place. And yet I'm running a company. It's a $200 million operation that I was part of the team that started that from scratch and built that whole thing out. So there's a lot of pressure in my life, and I'm looking at this guy saying, I've got to feel more pain to make the change. Now, get this: he stops and he looks at me, and he just pauses, and he says, "Ken, I can't do anything more for you. You've got to follow that voice."
Wow.
And as I walked out of the office, I was like, what is he talking about? I'm hearing voices and he's telling me to follow that voice. Nobody ever give me that advice. Now, he could have said anything to me. He could have had me in therapy for years, but he was so wise. So I went home and I thought, all right, what's this voice telling me? And this voice was telling me at the time, you've been playing too much, you've been partying too much, you need some help. And so I made a phone call. And that night I got into a recovery group, and my life changed completely. That was the day that I went from one person to another, and I stepped into this spiritual part of myself that I had no idea that was even there. I was a fellow that was kind of, I love God, and I grew up in Catholic school, and I remember feeling the presence of God there, and but it was always something external. And then I heard this one fella at one of the meetings I was at, and he says, "We pray from God to God." And I thought, what does that mean? And so that started me on this inner journey that has led me to today. I've celebrated like 30 years of sobriety. I've been a meditator for those 30 years. I've accomplished so much in my life, written several books, have, interviewed hundreds of the most successful, conscious, spiritual people on the planet. Last year, I was able to work with the fellow Neil Donald Walsh with Conversations with God, and my co-partner, producer Alan or Adam Hall. Adam and I produced a summit for Neil Donald Walsh and Steve Farrell, and we had 30,000 people register for this event, and on and on. So a lot of blessings. Been married for 24 years. I have a beautiful family. 3 daughters. We've got lots of grandkids. It's just an incredible, rich life. But it all started from that one decision, just one decision, and that's my whole point here. It's like, what is the decision your audience right now needs to make, maybe for them, that one decision that will create a quantum breakthrough in your life? And I'm not saying you have to step into recovery. I'm saying that may be in your business. It may be in your relationship. It may be in your career right now, or maybe in your physical health. There's something, we're all going through great challenges today. There's a lot of stress on a lot of people in society. But what I've learned is that when you stop, you slow down, and you get real honest with yourself. And then what'll happen is the same thing that happened to me. The voice of courage will show up. That is the voice of courage. And if you listen to that intuition, if you listen to that and go, I don't know how I'm going to do this, throw out how and take steps like I did. Do the worst first, do the worst thing that you could possibly think of that you don't want to do. What happens is everything starts to change. So that's kind of where I started a little bit. And we can go into the depth of what that really means as we have more time.
Yeah, you're going in and making that call to a recovery center.
Yeah.
Was that very clear for you that that was the step, the worst and hardest step that you needed to take? Was there a voice also saying that's where you need to go to feel the pain or to deal with the pain?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the indicator for you there?
I had a lot of people saying, "Hey, you're a little out of control here. You need to go get some help. Your life. You check out my life my life scale, right? I'm not getting all A's, right? I'm getting B's and C. I've got a lot of D's and F's actually at that time." And so, it was there, and people, people share things with us. There's signs everywhere if we pay attention with it. I just wasn't paying attention to the signs. And here's what I've learned over the years, is that there's always clues that are left, right? Failure leaves clues, and success leaves clues. But if you're in a place where, let's say, your health isn't 100%, right? You've had clues all along the way that, hey, maybe I shouldn't eat that. Maybe I should exercise more. Maybe I should pay attention to my environment and get some of the chemicals out of my environment. Maybe I should get more sunshine. Maybe I should get less stress. I figure out how to have less stress in my life. There's something there for us if we get honest with ourselves and clear with ourselves and be willing to make the hard choices, right? But the cool thing is, Corissa, is that it's just one day at a time. My latest book out there, it's called The Courage to Change Everything: Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom. Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom to Awaken Your Inner Genius. It's all just a one day at a time. And if we really want to change, I've been coaching now 28 years. I've worked with tens of thousands of individuals, and the ones that succeed are the ones that say, I'm making the decision today. This is the decision I'm making, and I'm going to take the steps every single day to make sure that that decision comes to fruition, whatever that is, that goal, that target, that that intention, that whatever it is. And that's what I find brings joy in my life. And I bet it brings joy in yours too, Chris, when we work with somebody and they really get it. They get it and they do it. And we start to feel that connection, that human connection. All of us fail. we all go
Mhm.
through we all go through stuff, right? I've got a lot of great failures in my life, and I say great because we don't really fail when we learn. If we're continuing to learn and evolve and grow ourselves, then that's not a failure. But I think I want to say one other thing before we take another deep dive. I think we have an identity crisis here in America, and probably in most countries throughout the world. And we we don't realize that we're not our cars, we're not our houses, we're not our jobs, we're not our family, we're not our relationships. That's just not who we are. And until we can start to stop and slow down and start to take those deep dives within ourselves and get to know ourselves, who am I? What do I stand for? Why am I here? That's a big question. Why am I here? And if you haven't answered that, it's not on one level. It's like, why am I here? Well, to take care of my family, to support my family, to have fun. Well, okay. Well, why am I here to have fun? Well, or support my family. Well, I'm here to make sure they have a better life, right? So we want to take it deeper. Well, I'll make sure that my family has a better. Why do you want them to have a better life? Well, I want them to have more choice. Well, why do you want them to have more choice? Well, because I want them to know who they are and thrive. Well, why do you want them to know who they are and thrive? Well, because I didn't get that chance early on. I didn't understand who I was, and therefore I was always walking around feeling less than or more than other people. I had this big ego is going back and forth. Well, why do you want them to not have that big ego? Well, because I want them to know God. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's different levels, right? We take it way down. But that's an important question that I think everybody in the audience ought to just be asking. Why am I here? Well, what's this life about? What am I going to make this life about?
Yeah, and in our society, our culture, we call that an existential crisis, but it's not a crisis, is it at all? It is an opportunity
Yeah.
to really understand and know ourselves. And I believe, yes, it's the greatest thing we can embark on, and it starts with that question and starts with the whying of our of
Yeah.
ourself and our life.
Yeah. It's no longer we have these midlife crises. We have, crisis every 20 years. A lot of people like, what's going on here? We got quarterly crises. Um, and these existential crises. Well, um, I'm not sure it's existential. I think it's an inner crisis. It's an
Mhm.
interstential crisis. I'm just
Mhm.
making that word up, but it's that place where we've lost sight of what's important. A lot of times
Mhm.
we get real busy, like we're on these phones 24/7, right? I've got mine next to me, right? Now, does the phone rule my life, or do I rule the phone's life, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes we get just lost in it. We get lost in social media. We get lost in watching TV, or we get lost in just doing something to distract us from why we're here. And
Mhm.
I think for me, I know I spent the first 42 years of my life um, just kind of trying to have fun. That was it. If there was one thing that I was chasing, it was money and fun. That was it. That was about as deep as I was, and that was not a fun life. That was such an unfulfilling um, life filled with a lot of drama, just challenges, this and this and this. And of course, it's all created inside. I'm the one creating all this drama, right? But I don't know it. I'm unconscious to it. And so, drama, if you got a lot of drama and trauma and whatever in your life, okay, a lot, right? It's not like we all have stuff goes on. But if you got more than the average, then there's something going on inside that really needs to be looked at. one of the things I did 20 years ago is I created this process called the release process. And it came out of the recovery work I did. And I thought, people in recovery have this amazing way to release all this stuff. What about all the people out there that aren't in recovery? Why shouldn't everybody have that same process? So I created this process, and it's now helped a whole bunch of people to be able to go take a little deep dive in under the subconscious, into the subconscious mind, right? We got the conscious mind, the subconscious, superconscious. We need to stop, take a look back at what is kind of stopping us. What are some of those core beliefs that were underneath the surface? Maybe you got some guilt, some shame, some remorse, some worries, some concerns, that you are just, you don't even know you have them. But like I said, those underlying, we'll call them, for lack of a better term, negative beliefs. Those beliefs under there, it's actually really emotion. You're attached to the emotion of the experience, and that's what we get stuck with. But if they're underneath there, they leave symptoms. You're wondering, well, how come I can't lose weight? Well, how come I can't make a lot more money? Well, how come my business is like stop start? It starts to make a lot of money, then it stops. How come I can't hold on to team members? How come I'm not hiring the right people? Why is my relationships, I don't have a long-term relationship? Why is that? Have you ever stopped to think that? Well, it's because there's some programming underneath the surface that's just stopping you. And everybody kind of knows that, but it's not about knowing. It's about realizing. It's about realizing what is underneath there, and then realizing that you have the ability, the choices to really take your life to the next level. That's what I get. And that's what I get the privilege of working for so many people, to really help them understand what's under there. But more importantly, when they find what's underneath there, when they find their soul, right? When they find that power, that passion that's under there, then everything changes. So I just say one last thing around that. What comes to my mind, just the image of it, it's like there's this beautiful, bright, brilliant soul. And you ever seen babies, man? They got those
Yeah.
eyes, they're smiling, they're just so full of joy and happiness, right? Not all the time. They cry because things don't go their way. But you see the sparkle in their eye. We all got that sparkle in us. But it's like the soul's been covered up by kind of like a rust. There's like a rust over the soul, right? And the rust is, like I said, those worries, those concerns, those guilt, shame, remorse, hurts. Places we hurt ourselves, places we hurt others, traumas, dramas. That all clouds that beauty of the soul. So when we can get clear with it and we take that off, the soul shines again. And guess what else happens? Synchronicity starts showing up again because we become more aware. We can see things differently, and we start to make better choices. And what happens is, with choice and commitment, providence moves. The people, the places, the things that we need to take our life to the next level are there. They show up for us. And I just wish everybody knew this, because, had I been continued on that path that I was on, the path of unconsciousness is really what it was, then my life, I believe my life would have been a waste, right? I get to the other side again. I do a life review, and it's like, well, you had the choice to wake up. You had the choice to use that business for you to step up and learn what's underneath the surface so that you could start to really generate wealth in your business. You had the ability to lose that weight. You had the ability to love deeper and have your family there. You had the ability to look in the surface and change up what needs to be changed up, but you didn't do it, you know? So I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life of regrets. I want to live a life of choice, right? And take full responsibility for every one of those choices and be able to look back and go, yeah, I screwed up here and I screwed up there. I didn't get all A's, but I did whatever I could to change things up.
And what kind of advice would you give to somebody who they've awakened to their inner power. They know that there is a soul beneath that they can begin to rely on, and they maybe start to rely on it, and they start to awaken and become conscious to the inner life. At that point, if they were to hit a wall, hit pick up the drink again, or fall back into old patterns,
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is in that place where there
Yeah.
it's not smooth sailing from that point
Yeah.
forward?
The advice I would give is this is go back to the foundation of your life or create a foundation. Okay. What's foundation? Well, for me, it's like it starts before I end the day, right? When I go to bed, I set my intention to wake up feeling really good. So when I wake up, then my eyes open, I go to gratitude. I think about what I'm grateful for. A lot of times over the years, for many, many years, I've journaled because I think it's important to get out of our head and put it on paper so we can kind of see what's going on in our life. I think journaling is an important piece. But the other part of that foundation is meditation. And meditation is the key to changing up everything. Okay. But it's not just meditation. Meditation is the beginning step, right? We want to be able to step into this positivity, this energy, this power we feel from our soul consistently. Meditation helps us start there, but a lot of times we meditate and we come out in the beginning, and then the monkeys jump on your back, and you're the same person. So you want to learn how to master your energy, and more importantly than all of it, I think, is mastering your mind. Mastering your mind. See, the spirit is over the soul. Okay, we all came from this thing we call spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, infinite intelligence. Okay, but spirit, we all, what came out is individual souls, me and you. So it's that spirit's over the soul. The soul is over the mind, right? What mind? Conscious, subconscious, superconscious. And the mind is over our emotions. What you focus on, you feel. Emotions over actions, actions over result, and result over destiny. But it all starts at this level of mind, right? But what do we want? How do we want to use that mind? Well, sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we're in a bad place. For me, I have to remember that my wife loves me, God loves me, Jesus loves me. I sometimes I have to just go there and everything's okay. Everything is okay. Just got to start telling yourself everything's okay. Everything's going to work out, right? As long as you make some choices, it's going to work out. And the key, though, is to understand that whenever we get upset, wherever we get off track, we just get back on track. It's like that goes back to the first thing I said was, why am I here? Why am I really here? Okay. Well, we could start to answer that. The question for me has been answered. I'm here to evolve. I'm here to remember who I am. I'm here to help others and be of service. I'm here to bring more love and joy into this world. That's why I'm here. Now, I don't always remember that. I don't know about you, but I don't remember it. So when I get off track, I have to stop and slow down and remember that why I'm here, right? What is my purpose? And if you don't know your purpose right now, it's okay. I started there. What I do is when I coach somebody, I say, listen, why don't you just write out a couple things? Write out who you think you are. Just write it out, journal about it. Who am I? And just write it out. Maybe it's, oh, well, I'm, whatever. But then go into what your purpose is, right? And, just keep asking, what else is my purpose? What else is my purpose? My purpose is here to love, to be kind. What else? Go deeper until you really start to feel it. Who was it? Warren, I forgot Warren's last name, but he wrote that book, Purpose Driven Life. And powerful book, powerful because he's talking about our real purpose. Why are we here? So when we can connect to our soul and bring it into our humanity, then life can change. It can get better. You know,
Mhm.
that's my
And
answer.
Yeah, and I love that you shared and just keep going. And what I would add to that too is that keep going and keep moving forward on the path rather than beating yourself up
Yeah,
for getting off the path or falling off the path, or that's the past, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
continue
yeah,
forward because we are building that better future rather than getting and being mired in the past. The past could have been yesterday. The past could
yeah,
have been, I ate that whole box of cookies yesterday, or I had
yeah,
drinks, or whatever it is yesterday.
yeah.
But that is still, even though it's very close and it just happened, it's still the past. And you have right now to create a whole different future, which is okay, get back on the path right now. And now we're changing it into that new future. That kind of perseverance, which does take courage. And I know you share a lot about courage. Um, that that kind of perseverance is the what I feel is what prevents a lot of people from walking this path consistently and really taking it forward. um, what do you, and as far as people who don't feel like they've got that inherent courage, bravery to continue to
Yeah.
persevere, what are some ways that people can build that up
What a
and build
wonderful
that up?
question. What a beautiful question that is. Um, well, first of all, I want to say this. I just want to take a step back. If you go to my website, kendfoster.com, D is for Donald, kendfoster.com, right on the homepage there, I give away the release process. So for some of you, it might be really valuable for you to go there and do that inner work. Just start there. Let's get Carissa was just saying. Let's get rid of the past. Okay, let's start to live in the present moment. I love that. And now I'd like to answer your question about courage. Um, if you don't have courage, you're kidding yourself. Everybody has courage. It's within all of us. We're born with it. It's your innate. You have it innately inside of you, and it doesn't mean it's developed. Courage is like a muscle. We got to develop it. And the word courage comes from the Latin word cur, which means to speak one's truth. So we have to get clear that first step of courage is being honest with ourselves, right? You know it's not working, right? You can pretend so long, but inside, you asked me that, Krista. Did you really know? Yeah, I knew for a long time, but it didn't mean that I wanted to admit it to myself. And there's whole bunch of beliefs that go along with we can rationalize anything. We can rationalize how come I'm drinking, how come I'm smoking, how come I'm overweight, how come my husband isn't the best husband or wife. We can rationalize anything, but when we get honest, then that's when, and it takes courage to get honest. It really does. It's not easy. There a lot of tears for me when I woke up. A lot of regrets, a lot of wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, right? Which I had to get rid of because that doesn't serve anybody. It just makes me feel worse, right? Remember, I told you what you focus on, you'll feel. You focus on your regrets, you're gonna feel them. So I had to get clear with that. And but I'll say this with courage is that we can develop it. You see, courage is an energy also. It's a force, it's a power. So how do we tune into it? Well, one of the ways is you can ask this. Just ask the question. If I were courageous, what are three things I would do today to, and you fill in the blank, okay? If I was courageous, what are three activities I could take today to move my business forward, to get rid of the drinking, to get rid of the weight, to get rid of, what are three activities? Now, I'll give you another little tip. One of the ways to develop courage is just for the next 7 days, go do something you've never done before. And it can be as easy as, well, I've never woken up in the morning at 5 and gone out for a walk. Or you could go to the grocery store and go, I've never tried that food. I'll try that. Or, I've never been able to sit down and journal. Okay, well, I'm going to start doing that. 7 days has to be something new every day. Okay, it takes courage to do things new. It takes courage to open up our minds and our hearts, right? And it takes courage to step out of the programming or the thinking that we are in, all right, to realize that we have choice again and we can make some really amazing choices, right? And now listen, I work with people that are startups. I work with a lot of startup businesses, and I work with several that have multi-million dollar businesses. Okay. Yeah, I took this one guy, he did the inner work. He went from about 8 million. He's at 75 million now. We're still working, right? What I found is people that are committed to really evolving, and evolving isn't a one-time day, you don't change overnight. Well, you can. I don't get me wrong. You can make a decision and your life starts to change like mine did. But generally speaking, even though after I made the decision, it took many, many, many years to become the person I am today. Right? So I think if you just do those little tips around developing your courage, and listen, you don't need more information. Okay, you just don't. You got what you need. What you need now is realization. You have to realize that you are this powerful, infinite, incredible being, and that the world is your oyster, and that God is doing things for you, not to you, that you can step into this part of yourself in greater and greater ways, just as I have. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Trust me. And I've helped so many people do it also. Everybody, just everyday folks, and listen, if you don't get it right the first time, so what? Winston Churchill said it. Never, 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 never give up. Never. Never. You just don't. Why would you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and obviously the giving up is also an energetic, uh, going to create the conditions in which you have given up, right? I mean, you make a decision to give up or a
Yeah,
decision that is not going to try, not going to take that risk. And those are the conditions then that will appear that feed you, right? So it's,
that's right.
um, yeah, that practice, the 7 day courage building and developing. I love that. I've always been one to really be not so risk averse. I will try all sorts of new things, experiment and do things new. Uh, However, in the doing of something new, it really is not, it's like I've learned how to take it from that action of the do the new thing and figure out what is it that shift in me? What did that teach me? So I love to travel like you do. And one of the things I learned early on, I lived in New Zealand when I was 20 for a year. And on that trip, so much happened for me, but the biggest thing that happened was this inner realization that my choice to do that in the experiences that I was having there and putting myself in were teaching me about my own inner resources
Mm.
and what I had. It was showing me myself in a new light. And I think that's what these new experiences do for us, whether travel or in trying a new food or a new habit. It shows, it's like shines a light on a different resource or a different aspect of ourselves, or maybe even shining a light on something hidden.
Well, isn't that the truth? And you said a word that is real important to me. It's choice. You see, when I was pre 1992, for me, I don't think I had a lot of choice. I think I thought I had choice, but I believe that a lot of times we program ourselves in such a way, or society, or teachers, or our friends. We listen to people and we take on all these beliefs, and we wake up and we're like, well, we believe we're living the American dream and doing what we have, and everybody's got freedom. Well, do you really? I think that's the question. For me, I didn't have freedom at that point. I was a slave to alcohol. I was a slave to drugs. I was a slave to some really poor people in my life, poor choices I'd made, right? But they were my only quote friends, which they weren't friends. Okay. But I didn't know that at the time. So I don't think I had a lot of choice because I was running on addiction. I was running on past programming. I was running on believing that I lived in some kind of this is how the world is. That's it. This is the world. This is how it is. Not realizing that it was complete delusion. Just complete delusion. Now, it's difficult sometimes for us to step into the courage to admit that things aren't even working. We get windows of opportunity. And when you have that little window of opportunity and you see what's not working, that's the time you have to take that opportunity and step into it to make the change. I don't care if you're a business owner and all of a sudden you're at a business crisis and something comes up. And, I can't tell you how many businesses grow when they are in the, I would say the downtrodden state where everything is falling apart for them. That's when the owners of the businesses do the most work on themselves to change up themselves and their businesses. And I think, it's kind of like human nature. We don't, if things are going along, we're probably just going to go along. But if things fall apart, then you get really clear. But when that window of opportunity comes, it's so important to take it. It's important to find a coach, find a counselor, find a therapist, find a workshop, find something, find your spiritual path, find something that's going to help you to grow and remember who you are and evolve. That's the key. Um, I'm so involved with Humanity's team right now, and which is Neil Donald Walsh and Steve Farrell, and the whole concept there. They want to have by 2030, I think it is. They're holding a space for all of us to realize the concepts of oneness, to be able to step into oneness thinking within each one of us. Well, when we're in delusion, we're all separate from each other. I drive my car, I have my house, I have my girlfriend, I have my tires, I have my radio. We have all that. It's all separate. And you have everything of yours. And we don't mix. We're completely separate. But we know that's a delusion. We know that the three scientists just received the Nobel Prize last year for the entanglement theory. And entanglement is basically showing that we're in reality here, okay, and we can see what's going on here, but when we impact the reality here, it can be impactful a mile away, 1,000 miles away, a universe away. It's all entangled. They've been able to show now how everything is reaction and action and reaction, and everything is together. So we need to realize more that we are one, that Corissa and I are one, that Judy and I are one, that our family and I are one, right? And why is that so important? Because when we realize we're one with the environment, we're one with the Native Americans, we're one with the Russians, we're one with the Chinese, we start to look at life differently. We start to see God in everybody, and we start to treat others differently. We start to treat our environments differently. We start to show up differently. An exercise I like to give people is when they're like, well, how do I figure this one out, Ken? How do I start seeing everybody as one? And I said, well, you just start with basic. Start for the next 7 days, go out and see God in everybody. See God in everybody. The ones you don't like and the ones you like, the ones that are acting out and the ones that are acting for you. Go see God in everybody. And that'll start to shift your consciousness into this oneness idea. And I don't know how it'll show up for you. It might show up a lot different than the next person, but that's okay. It'll be right for you. Just start. You got to start with someone, and it takes courage to do that. Um, I'll just say one other thought around that about oneness. I um I was really feeling it was time to let go of me always feeling more than or less than people. And one of the concepts that I got was I would always break eye contact with the person first. So you may want to notice that in your own life. When somebody speaks to you, do you look them in the eye? Are you connecting with them, or do you turn away? And who turns away first? Just kind of notice that. Okay. Now sometimes that's a cultural thing, and that's okay. You might want to break that old cultural rule, and for me, what I did is I finally, I practiced it a lot. I practiced not breaking contact. And one day there was a Charger game, and at halftime, I decided, well, I'm going to walk around the stadium. And then it came to me, this weird thought. I wonder where that came from. That I would just connect with everybody around the stadium and just smile at them with my eyes and just connect with them. It wasn't staring at them or challenging anybody. I was just there with them. And, from that moment on, I was able to just connect in a different way, right? So I say that because we're talking about oneness and starting about if we can start to see each other, we can start to hear each other beyond our words, right? What does that mean? We can go into that a lot, Carissa, but we can hear each other beyond words, can start to see each other. Eventually we get to feel each other, right? We start to develop. Everybody's empathic. Most people are, that's shut down in them. But when you start to be able to feel another, you can be empathic. You start to learn how to control that energy and be with that. Life gets different. We see things completely different, and it becomes richer and more fulfilling in so many ways. And we just wake up and go, honey, I love you. Let me give you a kiss. I love life. I love me. I love where I am. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the enveloping or the letting go into oneness and feeling that immersion of every cell of your body, every inch of your energy, all of who you are into oneness is the most blissful bliss you've ever experienced. It's the most loving love you could ever know. It is all of the things I think we seek externally to fill those voids
Yeah.
within that we've learned to fill or fulfill through all of those external things you were talking about earlier. They don't mean shit once you've felt that connection.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, how silly are all those things? They just seem so kind of like, oh, yeah, and feeling into that is a path, certainly. Like you gave a great set of practices to be able to connect into that by looking into to other the eyes of humanity, looking into their souls. Um, Being in connection with source and consciousness, which I'm sure happens for you in meditation. I know it certainly happens for me also in that space and in that place, which is why the practices of are so important. And you teach in practices, and I love that because we cannot get to a new place if we don't learn new habits because we've been so conditioned with all of those other habits, right? All of that other programming, which we need to unlearn, but then it leaves a void. So it's also like with addictions, yours with alcohol or drugs, and there are countless things that people are addicted for, right?
Yeah.
Phones, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, we might not feel like we've got a quote unquote problem because we're not addicted to one of the big three. But if we examine our lives more deeply, you'll probably see that you are addicted to or to overly reliant on something that is external to you.
Boy,
And
isn't that the truth? Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, think about the addiction to worry. How many people will try to worry themselves into manifesting something, right? Or, the addiction to sex, or the addiction to porn, or the addiction to, and like you said, addiction is a strong word. The over familiarity of these things, right? That you're just over familiar. You're doing it way, way, way too much, and where does it lead? What, at the end of the road, do you feel stronger? That was my question for me. Did I feel stronger or weaker? What's making me feel stronger? Going out to exercise or going having a cocktail? Let me think. And it comes down to choice at some level.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have free will. It's like, well, we're given this
Yeah.
paradise to live in, and this, miracle of our own abilities to co-create. But it's free will still. It's like you can or cannot. It's up to
Yeah.
you. And I love that you're helping people to with these tools and practices so that they can see that they're a miracle and can see that there are other ways of living and being and evolving
Yeah.
into a better place. So, for those of you listening who don't feel like you're in the best, highest place in your life, working with a coach like Ken can help you get there no matter where you're starting from. And I think that a lot of people, people have different ideas of when they would start working with a coach, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm at the bottom of the barrel, I should start working with someone. Or they might be a person who's like, I am high achieving and I'm just trying to get to the next level. Whatever level you're at, everything you've shared just on this podcast is applicable to anyone at any stage of life. And I think for anyone listening who feels like, oh, yeah, you know what? I could be in a better place, whatever better means. You may not even know what that means at this point. Working with someone who has your years of wisdom, but also the applicable practices and skills and that tactical piece,
Mm.
because the tactical piece to me is the difference.
Yeah.
Someone could say all these things
Yeah.
and just, you've written many books. Like you could read one of Ken's books,
Yeah.
but it's the supportive action. It's the support to take action that I think is the most important. You've mentioned that a few times today. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about taking an action on that different thought.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about the coaching piece. And yeah, people come to me. Some of them come to me at the bottom, and a whole bunch of them come because they want to up level their lives. And it's kind of funny. Everybody's been given a challenge, usually in some certain area. Okay. You're rocking it in business, but your relationships suck.
Right.
You're in, you've got great relationship, but you have no relationship with money. You're in a place where, you're everything's going well, but you feel so unfulfilled. Get a lot of business owners like that. They've been achieving, 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 but they find that achievement is an empty game. Now they're looking for something deeper. They want to find who they are, what their spiritual life is about, right? So I like what you said, that because it's really, coaching is going to change, by the way, with the AI. We'll be able to go in and ask a question. What are the three things I need to do with my relationship to take it to the next level? And AI will come back and say, here are the three answers that we give you. Okay. But the thing that you won't have with a master coach, if you just use AI, is what Corissa was referring to. There's a for someone that's worked on themselves, there's a intuitive aspect to it. I know people come to me, Corissa, and I hear their thoughts. I hear their mind. I hear exactly where where they're stuck. All we have to do is have a conversation. So I'm clairaudient in that way. And when I hear it, I just pause and we bring it up, because a lot of times we don't know our own blind spots. We don't know why we're stuck. We just don't. That's where a real a master coach can help you to
Mhm.
really go deep and change it up, to up level your life.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, I'm working with a fellow right now that's, is very super successful, right, in a lot of areas of his life, but he's got one area that just he can't figure it out. He just can't figure it out. Happens to be the relationship area. And it's like, how can I be so successful in everything else and I can't succeed over here? Well, that's why you do the inner work. That's why you look at, I think God gives us, every one of us, Carissa, one of those wonderful opportunities to grow that we don't may not want to grow, but it's there. But
Mhm.
it's there to realize that whatever's in your life, it's not there to crush you. It's actually there to make you stronger. And it doesn't feel that way when we're in it. We're going through grief, or we're going through worry, or we're going through stress, or whatever. It doesn't feel that way. It just feels terrible. But it always passes, and it'll pass quicker most of the time if we get the lesson that we need to get.
Hear, hear to that. Thank you so much, my friend. This has been an illuminating and really beautiful conversation for me. And I know that everybody tuning in will feel the same. I'm going to put your links in the show notes, as well as a link specifically to the release exercise you mentioned. What a free, beautiful offering that you have for the world. So I'll make sure that we send people to that. Anything that you want to leave
Well,
folks
I'm
with?
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna do this. On my website, I have also a session with me right now. I don't know how long I'm gonna leave that up. We just got 75 people in the last 2 weeks, so that want to have a session, and I'm booked out for a while, so you have to be patient. But if you go to kendfoster.com, you can get a session with me, and I'll do my best to be a service to you to see where we can take your life to the next level. So that's there too. But my final thoughts are this, Carissa. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for putting your message out in the world so that others can understand and hear. And you're doing such wonderful work. You really are. My hats off to you.
Thank you.
And for those that are listening, we live in troubled times, but if you want to change the world, don't go out and try changing the world until you change yourself. Change yourself first, and then you'll have done your part for changing the world. It's a deep thought, and but do it first, and then you'll realize what I mean. Okay, that's my message.
It's beautiful. Thank